Hey, I don't think I want to trade Kevin Huerter anymore.
All right.
I've been all aboard, like, take his $15 million and ship it out, get a team to buy into a 25-year-old 40% career 3-point shooter and call it good. However, the other night against the Bucks, the Kings did not win, obviously, but they probably should have. They were a couple of free throws away down the stretch from winning that game. And now the Kings, save for that game this year. Well, no, not save for that game, including that game this year. The Kings are 6-2 when Kevin Huerter scores more than 15 points. That's a 750 winning percentage. They're 17-14 when he scores fewer than that. That's a 548 winning percentage.
Yeah, Kyle, we're 40 games into the season.
And he's very clearly figuring it out.
He's got 8 games where he scored 15 or more?
Yeah, he's struggled. That's fine.
Struggle bus done run him over.
I know it did, but now he's bouncing back.
I hope so.
He had 26 the other night. Excuse me. Yes, 26 the other night with 10 rebounds against Milwaukee. It's 1 point overtime loss. It's just really clear. And I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm prisoner of the moment here. But when it's something that drastic, like their offense looked like their offense the other night because of Kevin Huerter.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if you remove that element and remove that possibility, I don't know who you're replacing him with that allows your offense to elevate to that level. I don't.
No, I'm with you. I get what you're saying. They don't have another player that can do what he does. I totally get it. My problem is, and again, like, I like Kevin, and he was really good last season, but he showed signs that he can't do it when it matters. He can't figure it out.
The playoff track record isn't great.
We've watched 25 games here where he has not been able to figure it out, and I feel for him because I think he's a very good NBA player and he has a skill, a skill set that's really, really marketable and tradable and everything else. But like, look, if you disappear for stretches and you just can't find the bucket, I mean, talk about streaky. We talked about like at the beginning of this year, they need to iron out some of the crazy all over the board stuff. That's not what's happened. The peaks and valleys have gotten bigger for him.
And so do you think it's addition by subtraction then? Just taking out that volatility will help stabilize things?
Well, I mean, I think like if you look at a guy like Trey Lyles, right? Trey Lyles is like steady Eddie. Like every time you get, or like just to take it to the next level, look at how stable Sabonis is, right? And you just need players around him that can be somewhat stable. We've talked about this with like, I know this weird with like fantasy football. It's when I go and I look at fantasy football and I'm going to draft, right? I'm of course going to have my haymakers, right? I'm going to take some gambles here and there.
Yeah.
But in my rounds that matter, I look at players and you can look at, let's say, 8 different players that have 8 receiving touchdowns. And then I go in and I look at those 8 players, how they scored those touchdowns. And for me, like watching CeeDee Lamb this year, who ends up with 14 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns one time all season.
Yeah.
He also had 1 touchdown in like 11 or 12 games. I want that guy on my team because even the 1 week that he didn't have a touchdown out of like the last 9, he had 180 yards receiving.
Right.
Like, so the stability of that player, like for when I'm building my roster, I want players like that. What I don't want is I can have an HN on my roster, but how many times this year did he have 3 touchdowns and then nothing for 3 weeks and then 3 touchdowns and nothing? Like,
he was pretty banged up.
It's really difficult to be a consistent winning team if that's, again, what your starting shooting guard is doing. So Kevin has to figure it out. And it's on him. I thought last year he was really good all season, except for that middle stretch where for like 6 weeks, he really struggled. And then you get to the playoffs and he vanished completely. You might be able to give him one more season to see if he figures out. And by that one season, I mean this year. But when he showed you what he showed you in the playoffs, and then he has that same 6 to 8 week stretch in season, that's really, really tough to build around.
Yeah, and I think this gets back to as well. We were talking at the break in the chatty house about if you had to trade one of Huerter or Barnes, which one did you move? And I think for me, I'm probably keeping Kevin Huerter out of the two.
Because he's 25.
One, right? He's 25, but the problem comes in that if you're making a deal, he's probably the more valuable trade chip.
Yeah, I would
He's
say
young. He's a career 40% 3-point shooter.
people are going to look at his season this year and throw it away.
Yeah.
Like they'll be able to fix whatever's happening.
Right.
People are going to look at Harrison Barnes and say, okay, there's
It's what he is now.
the potential that he's on the downswing, and this is who he is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also think like if you don't put him next to the best rebounder in the NBA, he might average more than like 2.5 rebounds per game. I mean, it's just who he has been. But for him to take like such a dip this season and have it be like unexplainable, that's a problem to me.
Yeah.
And again, he wasn't a bad rebounder last year. You wanted more out of him, but it started in February where he stopped rebounding and he started doing the 1 to 2 rebounds a game. And so maybe it's at where the Kings put him on the court. Maybe it's that he feels like he can't go rebound from that position. But for a guy to go from 6.6 to 5.6 to 4.5 to 2.8 rebounds.
Oh, that's a trend.
In the last 4 years. Yeah. 6.6, 5.6, 4.5, 2.8. That's a trend. And that's not good. And especially when.
And that's I'm sorry. That type of dip is not because Domantas Sabonis is vacuuming up all the rebounds.
No.
That is a concerted lack of effort to me.
I think the last.
On the glass. Not saying Harrison Barnes didn't try.
The last 2 years, I mean, going from 5.6 to 4.5 and 2.8, I mean, those are with Sabonis versus without Sabonis, because Sabonis played 15 games a year before.
Mm-hmm.
So you are seeing like a decline. But the thing I would point to, the things that kind of say, I'm not sure if he's declining, 39.1% from three, 39.4, 37.4 last year, which was a down year, 39.9 again this year.
Sure.
So like he's still shooting it. He's still like solid in the things that he's been solid at. His steals 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7 the last 4 years. But it's the rebound numbers that like really, really stand out. And then I think the defensive metrics by this point prove out that like he's just not being able to stay in front of his man.
Yeah.
I haven't looked recently, but I'm going to guess that like it's becoming a bigger problem than it was before.
Yeah, I just think they can get more out of the position than hang out in the corner and shoot some threes and then be switchable on defense.
Okay, but Kyle, I would make the point that if that's what Harrison Barnes is, that's fine. But you can find better defensive versions of Harrison Barnes. Yeah.
If you're going to hang out in the corner and just shoot threes offensively, that's fine. And that's probably what they need. But then defensively, you need to offer more than he does.
Exactly.
Being switchable isn't enough.
No.
Being able to theoretically guard 2 through 5 is great. But in practice, it hasn't been working.
Yeah.
And if they were a top flight defensive team and he was just kind of the focal point of that, then you can absolutely live with less than 3 boards a game. And he's going to some nights he's going to knock down 3 or 4 threes, and other nights he's going to be absent on offense.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, he's not, and this is why it's tough. He's not the reason that, oh, hey, they're getting blown out a lot because of this.
Yeah.
He's not the reason that I don't think that the Kings can't win a title with this group. It's not like strictly his fault.
No. But I would say
think they need to get better there.
I would say
more
that
effective.
There's 20 games this year, like look at almost every single one of the blowouts. Every single one of the blowouts, you get pretty consistent numbers still. Fox has had a couple of bad games in blowouts, Sabonis, but it's still the same group: Sabonis, Fox, Murray, and Monk. And then you're getting nothing out of your 2 and your 3 in those games.
Yeah.
And that's a problem where you're like, they just aren't effective. And I don't know how else to, like, whether you run more plays for them. And I know Mike says I don't run plays for players, but you got to figure out ways to get those guys involved.
Yeah. And if that's, I mean, okay, Mike Brown doesn't run plays for players, but dude, if that's what it takes to get Harrison Barnes engaged, then do it. Like if
Yeah.
that's what it takes to get Kevin Huerter rolling, then that's seems like a really small adjustment. Like Phil Jackson
Mhm.
would always make sure that off the bat, like his center got a touch right away.
Yeah.
And making sure that, hey, whether it's Bill Cartwright or whoever, I don't know, but making sure that the center gets a touch early to keep them engaged. That's the whole philosophy of Steve Kerr and now Mike Brown. Like everybody's touching the ball always. Everybody's always got to be ready. And that's awesome. But on this team, it's that possession is more times than not going to end with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk when he's on the court.
No, totally.
Like
I totally agree.
Get Harrison Barnes some early touches. Then draw something up for him if you need to. If that's, I don't know, man.
Kyle, I would say the other problem I have,
Like we're trying to solve a problem that there's no real solution for.
No, I get you, but I would even, if you're going to have games where you start Chris Duarte, and, again, he had like a 5-game stretch there. I need them to invert their positions, and I need Harrison Barnes to be the guy in the 2-man game, not Chris Duarte. I'm fine with Chris Duarte being a catch and shoot shooter from the corner, and every once in a while taking somebody off the dribble and they overcommit on a closeout.
Sure,
right? That's fine. But that's not who he should not be in a 2-man game. That, like, to me,
he dribbles a lot.
Yeah, they're trying to do something that they use Huerter for, when Barnes is the replacement. Barnes is the guy who can do that.
Yeah.
And he can get downhill and he can make the pass and he can hit the 3 ball.
Yeah.
He's just a more secure player. And so when they do make that move where they're using a defensive minded player in Duarte, I would just like to see more of Harrison Barnes engaged in the offensive side of the ball. Don't leave him in the corner, because I just don't think that's your best use for the guy. So, I mean, he still has a lot of game as an offensive player.
Yeah, I think that's what's frustrating is you see it.
Like he shows flashes where it's like, hey, look, there he is.
Yeah, a couple possessions a game. And you're like, oh, man, okay, Harrison Barnes is in it. And then you won't see him the rest of the game.
Yeah.